Salve te omnes, and welcome back. This time we are in Aeneid Book 2, and we're going to be going through lines 201 to 227 in this video, specifically talking about Laocoon and the snakes. So before we get started, let's quickly go over our color coding. Red, as ever, indicates the subjects, blue indicates objects, and green covers the verbs. So with that out of the way, let's dive right in. And we start with Laocoon. Here he is. And in this whole phrase right here, we get a bit of information about Laocoon. Okay, and even though it appears like this is kind of a chiastic arrangement, in fact, we can see that the way the words go together, is actually a little bit more interlocked. So we learned that Laocoon has been chosen by lot, all right, drawn by lot, as we can supply the priest to Neptune. All right, we could say priest of Neptune or for Neptune, but Neptuno, as we see from the note, is dative of reference. So he is the priest to Neptune chosen by lot. And what was he doing? We see that he was maktabat, so he was slaughtering or, ritually sacrificing a massive bull at the solemnes aras, okay, at the solemn altars. However, behold, ek autem, behold, twin, and for the Gemini we got to come all the way down to Angues, twin snakes from Tenedos, right? Most of this is pretty straightforward. From Tenedos, over or through the tranquil deep. So alta here is acting as the substantive noun, being modified by tranquillus, okay? So even though alta is itself an adjective, it's being treated as the noun. So over the calm deep, horresco referens. This is one of these moments where Aeneas, as the narrator, interrupts to share a personal reflection. Literally, I shudder, remembering, present active participle, nominative referring to I, ego, Aeneas. So I shudder as I remember, while I remember, something like that. These twin snakes with immense coils, literally orbs, but they're snakes, so coils. And we see that this is an ablative of quality, or more likely manner, or you can read it either way. What did these twin snakes do? They incumbunt pelago. They lay upon the deep, or the ocean. All right, and pelago we see here is a dative. It's not ablative. And why is it dative? It's because of the prefixed verb, incumbunt. So they lay upon the deep, and side by side, or literally equally, right? So side by side, they tend or aim or head towards the shore. Notice the plural neuter, but that's okay. We can read it as singular if we like. And then the quorum here is referring to the snakes up above. All right, so we might start with this. Whose chests, all right, or the chests of whom? The snakes. Whose chests? Arrecta. So arrecta here, there's a lot of red here. There's a lot of subjects. Arrecta goes with pectora, and eubai is actually working with sanguinei. All right, so that's how that works. So we see, the 1, 2, 1, 2 happening right there, literally kind of a interlocked arrangement with noun, adjective, noun, adjective. So whose chests raised up between the waves, and whose eubai, whose crests, which are blood red, so bloody blood red crests tower over the waves. All right, so their chests and crests tower over the waves, and then by contrast we have pars cetera, literally the other part or the remaining part, so the rest of the snake, okay, the rest of the beast lay upon or skimmed the sea, right, the pontum as the object of legate, pone, adverb, behind, okay, and, coiled or slithered or curved, its immense back, or their immense backs, because the plural can work here because there are two snakes, all right, even though sinuat is singular, right, because pars cetera is the subject, so the rest of it curled its immense back, or their immense backs, in a fold or with a fold. right? Your note suggests ablative of manner, again, or possibly respect. Okay. Fit sonitus spumante salo. You can hear the alliteration there. You can hear the sibilance right there with the alliteration. Literally, a sound emerged or arose, right? Fio means to become or to come into being. So a sound arose, spumante salo. This is actually an ablative absolute, all right? So with the sea foaming or something like that, with the salt foaming, a sound arose. And now notice the very quick move here. So first there's just the sound coming from the water, and then boom, the snakes hold the land. All right, so the snakes have arrived on the scene very, very quickly. Now they hold the land, and, okay, suffecti ardentes oculos. Now, your note in your book talks about oculos. This here is a Greek accusative, or sometimes called the accusative of respect, all right, working with suffecti as though it was active voice, or more correctly, middle voice, but we don't need to get into that right now. So we're not going to translate this purely passively, though. So to do it literally, it would be something like, they are suffused with respect to their burning eyes. But that doesn't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. So they are filled, they have filled their burning eyes, we might say, sanguinitigni, with blood and fire. All right, with blood and fire. This is talking about the eyes, of course. And they lambebant, let's scroll down here, and they lambebant, literally, they lick their hissing mouths with quivering or vibrating tongues. Okay, literally, with vibrating tongues, they lick their hissing mouths. All right, so continuing on, once again, we shift here to the first person. Remember that Aeneas was an eyewitness. He was part of these events as they were going on. We fled from the site, okay, an ablative of separation, obviously. Exsangues, this is the nos, okay, nos exsangues, we bloodless, all right, pale, right, we pale fled from the site. Illi, now this, remember that ille, illa, illud in Latin often indicates a subject change, so illi, we're back to the snakes. Agmine certo, all right, in, we might say, a sure line. Remember, an agmen is a marching line. We saw this with the winds. In a sure line, Laocoon tepetunt. They seek Laocoon. And first, we might even say but first. And first, the small bodies, right? We see that, of the two sons or children. All right, so you see the interlocked word order there with parva duorum, corpora natorum. Each snake, so we're going to read these as plural, even though it's clearly singular, and we see that the verbs are singular, implicat and depascitur. Plexus is also singular, but because of uterque, meaning each of two or both, in English it makes more sense for us to read it as plural, and that's totally fine. Both snakes embracing, all right, because this is a deponent, so we can, having embraced, it's a present, it's a perfect active participle, which only works because the verb amplector is deponent. Having embraced or, wound around the small bodies of his two sons, okay, they entwine, and again, we're reading the plural, even though it's singular, and feast upon the miserable limbs with a bite, or in a bite, with a bite. All right, so they are consuming Laocoon's sons. Okay, continuing on. Post. This post is not the preposition, so it's not behind Laocoon. It is instead post as in afterwards. So after they have consumed Laocoon's two sons, all right, they, notice how the verbs have become plural now to align with our understanding of both snakes, they snatch him. This is Laocoon, okay? This is Laocoon himself. Remember that ipse is used to refer to the most important person in the moment, and right now that most important person is Laocoon. What is he doing? He is coming to help. This is a dative of purpose. All right, so we can translate it almost like it were an infinitive, coming to aid, coming to help, coming for help, if you like, and bearing weapons. Now, this again is one of those instances where ipsum goes with ferentem because that's the present active participle modifying it. All right, so he, Laocoon, was bringing, but then being a participle, a present active participle, it can also take a direct object, which is the tella. All right, so Laocoon was bringing weapons. Okay, so Laocoon was coming to help and bringing weapons. They snatch him and they tie him or bind him or entwine him in, right? You can say with, their huge coils. And now, 2 times, notice the bis, these are adverbs, twice. Again, look at amplexi, it's that same perfect active participle because deponent. So, having wound around his middle twice, and having circum dati. Now this, your note tells you, this is actually one word that has been split into pieces through a rhetorical device called tmesis. All right, and you can look up what that is, but we're going to read this as one word. Having surrounded or wrapped, if you like, their scaly backs around his neck. Okay, around his neck. And colo is dative because circumdati, even though it's split into its component pieces, is still a prefixed verb. Okay, so circumdati, the prefixed verb, takes colo, having wrapped around his neck. Okay, literally having wrapped their scaly backs around his neck. That's how that whole thing works. They tower over. Okay, they tower over him with their head and tall necks. In this case, altis means tall, not deep, for obvious reasons. Okay, continuing on. Ille, once again, a subject change. So now we're back to Laocoon. He is now the subject. He, at the same time, so simile, right? So, and we see the other simile down here. So he's going to be doing a set of things, numerous things, all at the same time. And the simile helps reinforce that. So, at the same time, he tries, tended, right? Normally we've seen this mean aim or move, but in this case with the infinitive, he attempts to pull apart the knots with his hands, right? By means of his hands. He attempts to pull apart the knots with his hands, being drenched about his or around his garlands. And this, believe it or not, we see it again, twice in the same passage. Another Greek accusative, the accusative of respect, with perfusus, which we should by all rights be reading as passive, but we are not because of this Greek construction. So, having soaked his headband with blood and black poison. All right. So at the same time he is doing this, because the snakes are above him, right? So they're coming down with their poison and blood and everything onto his head. The blood of his sons, right, that they have consumed. So while he's doing this, at the same time, he raises up horrible shouts, like horrific shouts, to the stars or the sky, if you like. And then, continuing on, we have a simile. Does it qualify as an epic simile? Maybe not. Probably not. It's not really long enough, but it is a nice simile. How is Laocoon at this moment? Just as a groan when, all right, and we know that this cum means when because the verb down here and actually the verb right here, both of these verbs are in the indicative mood. So we know without any doubt that this cum means when. It cannot mean since or although because those require the subjunctive. Just as the groan when a wounded bull, Saucius taurus, a wounded bull flees the altar and shakes loose the uncertain axe from its neck. So this whole bit right here from this comparison, this simile, is talking about a bull being sacrificed, but the axe that was supposed to kill the animal missed and was stuck in its neck. And of course, that angers the bull, and the bull bellows and flees from the altar because it's wounded and scared and doesn't know what's going on. That is what Laocoon is like. That was the type of groan or shout that he was giving. And of course, we remember when we started, Laocoon was sacrificing a bull at an altar, so we see that that comes full circle. And so here we are now for the end of this passage. But the twin snakes, or dragons if you like, flee to the top of the temple. All right, Summa de Lubra. De Lubra is a temple. Okay, to the top of the temple with a gliding. All right, this is an ablative of manner, lapsu, a fourth declension noun, lapsu, with a gliding. So we might just say they glide to the top of the temple, but the Latin says that the twin snakes flee with a gliding to the top of the temple and seek the citadel, or temple, of fierce Tritonides. This is Minerva, okay, one aspect of Minerva, of fierce Minerva, and they conceal themselves. This verb is passive, but the note suggests, again, another Greek type of thing, that this is actually sort of a middle voice. So it's not that they are concealed, it's rather more that they conceal themselves under the feet of the goddess, under the orb of her shield. And we can see the chiasmus here with pedibus and orbe, and dei and klipe, right? Under the feet of the goddess, under the orb of her shield. Okay, and that is it for this particular passage. We will be continuing on with what happens next now that Laocoon has met his untimely demise in the next video. Maximus gratias et valete.